Thank you very much. Now, John chapter 20, verses 19 to 29. Now, in the night of the resurrection, it was his present and gift. Peace be with you. That is the title. Peace be with you. This was at nighttime of the day of his resurrection. John chapter 20, verse 19 to 21, and also 26. It says this several times. Now, on behalf of mankind, he had no sin, but he became one like sin, with sin, and he got despised, and like being swept like dust. He was ignored, and he was not even treated as life. And he had injustice done to him, and he had unrighteous judgment on him, and got death penalty. And he didn't even have a house. As Jesus was born on this earth, when we look at Luke chapter 2, verse 7, it says this, that there was no room in the inn. And there was a trough of a horse that the horses ate out of. And that's where he was born. And we can see that this is prophesying about Jesus' his future days. He took upon the sins of mankind, Jesus Christ. And it was prophesying about his life. He would not have a house. He could not even go into his own tomb. But the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea was borrowed, and he was buried there. And look at that. And poor Jesus in that situation. After he resurrected, in that night, the disciples were in the upper room of Mark John in Jerusalem, that place where they had the Last Supper. And we could see that they all gathered, and they were trembling in fear. If they got caught, they would get the death penalty. And so they locked all of the doors. Because why? Because they were scared and fearful. Now, the teachers of the disciples was sentenced unjustly, and he got the sentence of the cross. And first of all, the disciples got a big shock. Like you had a accident on the highway going 100 kilometers, getting that shock. And it's that same kind of shock and collision. And we could also see that they had discouragement, and they also had emptiness, and they had discouragement, and they were confused. It was just dark in front of their eyes. Through the center, through Jesus as the center, they became a group. There was a following. And when Jesus died, they all just scattered automatically when their leader had died. And now, before they met Jesus, they just went back to their normal life. We got to go back to our normal lives before we met Jesus. And the 11 disciples had these thoughts full. And poor disciples in this situation. Now, looking at the event of the cross, as it comes closer, we say, Jesus, Jesus, oh, he's the Son of God, he's the Christ, the Messiah. Oh, he said, if you believe in me, you can receive salvation. They heard that, but they forgot all of that. And they saw with their eyes Jesus being crucified. And what is this happening to, what's going to happen to the Son of God? Who's going to know that he's going to be born of the Virgin Mary? Only Jesus himself would know that. And for 3 years they heard that word, but they didn't know anything. They didn't take it seriously. Oh, I guess it might or might not happen. But they saw that cross and the event of that with their own eyes. And from the head to the feet, we could see, like, he was totally just beat up. And look at him, so pitied. And so Jesus' word need to come closer. But they all just ran away from that. Oh, he died. He got crucified. And in their hearts, do you think that they would believe? The shock was just so huge. Even if all of the people got together and tried to comfort you, it wouldn't help. Your children, hey, if they got killed, what would you feel? And can you be comforted through all of the neighbors coming to you? Your own children. And only the heart of the parents, only they themselves know. You can't comfort them. You know, after my first son died, I got all of the pastors at Orlando, and they just didn't know what to do. And I said, hey, my son is in the bosom of God. I'm thankful, and let's pray to God. First I said that, and then others saw what I said. And I felt the closeness in that situation. Now, don't you think I would have a big shock? I believe the word, and that's why I'm not. I've had this happen to me in reality. I've preached about it, but it actually happened to me. And it's not refreshing even crying out and lamenting about that. And we can see that the shock was so huge. And first of all, the Jews, they were spies. Oh yes, I saw the disciples, and they would get reported. So they cannot meet. They have to hide and avoid getting caught. And so the 11 disciples, they were in the upper room of Mark, John. And he didn't even knock, and without any warning, he just appeared all of a sudden. And when we look at John chapter 20:19, it says, "Peace be with you." Now, they're in your families, in your workplaces, in all of the affairs of your life. And you have peace in order for everything to go well. If your heart is insecure, nothing really works out. If your heart is like spreading, like it has to be like a calm sea. And the Lord said in the end times that there's going to be waves, sounds of the waves of the seas. And we can see that the end times are going to be like that. And there are apartments like in Incheon. And then it's going to, the heart of mankind is going to be like the waves. Revelation chapter 17. And it says that men are like sea in Revelation 17:15. If you lose your peace, then every family, you are like Incheon apartments, just insecure by the waves of the sea, ready to be taken over. They were afraid of the Jews, and they locked the doors. And their minds, their hearts, we can see that they were they were grieved. They were in darkness, emptiness. And they were regretful of following Jesus for 3 years. Hey, if I would have not followed Jesus, I could have had business, and I could have taken care of my children and have a good relationship. But I didn't even take care of my house because the kingdom of God was supposed to come. and they followed Jesus, and their houses wouldn't be kept up, and the children would just get distant from their parents, and the wife and the spousal relationship wouldn't really work out very well. And so in their hearts, they're just all dizzy and just confused. What are we going to do now? Now, what are we going to do? There's nothing to do. We cannot do anything right now. We follow Jesus, and we're making big noise for 3 years near Galilee. And how are we going to just face our neighbors and our friends and so forth? And what about our families? How am I going to face my families? Do they have money in their pockets? And they're just empty pockets. And then they're wondering, what if we get caught? And they had that fear. And there was just horror just pressing them down. And now they cannot stay in Jerusalem anymore, they thought. We cannot face the people anymore. And let's just dig holes on mountains, or let's go somewhere else. And I'm sure they had those kind of minds. Let's go somewhere else. And we can see that if they go back to their lives, their normal lives, do you think the neighbors would just be alone, let them alone? Hey, you said that the kingdom of God was coming. Hey, you made a lot of big noise. Look at you now, they would say. Look at you now. Hey, your teacher was a fake. Fake, he was a fake. And so that was worry and concern in their hearts. And it was just to the point of being diseased, to the point of becoming ill. And they were scattering, but they got together again. And they would go back to their own hometowns. But let's meet one more time before we scatter. And that was that night of the resurrection. And the Lord's resurrection, they heard from the ladies. But what are you talking about? Nothing, no words would come into the disciples. And he came and appeared without even knocking. And it was a teacher. And it was not his old form. He was bright. And he was just glowing. And they thought they weren't seeing properly. They rubbed their eyes and they're like wondering what they thought it was like a ghost. Like some spirit. Just wondering what was going on. And what did Jesus say? Hey, I'm not a ghost. Hey, ghost, do they have bone and flesh? Look at me, come here. I have blood, I have flesh, I have bone. Resurrection of the Lord is not just spiritual. Some people say that. There's religions who say that he just resurrected spiritually. But they're just scary. Christianity has physical and spiritual resurrection. And originally, we go back to the original form where Adam was before he sinned. And he said, look, the ghosts don't have bones and flesh. Hey, touch me, feel me. And so all of a sudden, they just got just so shocked, just so surprised. And they're like, what is going on here? And then secondly, peace be with you. And before Thomas, disciples said, we saw the resurrected Lord. And Thomas was like, what are you talking about? Hey, have you ever seen a man resurrect? Yeah, I don't believe that. That's what Thomas said before. And he was just so stubborn. And it passed, 8 days had passed. And the disciples saw the resurrected Lord. And they believed. But Thomas said, hey, it's no good. Hey, he got nailed to both hands, the crown of thorns, the spear that was spearing aside. And if I don't touch that scar, I'm not going to believe. And he appeared to him third time after 8 days. Peace be with you. Thomas, touch me. And so he touched that place, that scar where he got speared. His place where he got beat, the crown of thorns. He was shocked. And before he touched, he wouldn't believe. But as he saw, he said, Lord, my Lord, I believe. And he just went prostrate. And he was just weeping and just... and what did Jesus say? You saw me and believe. But there are people who do not see me and are blessed even more. And this was the situation. And then he just disappeared. Look at the fishermen. They gathered at the Tiberias coastlands. And they couldn't catch anything all night. And Jesus prepared bread and fish and had fire lit up and cooking that up. And the disciples needed to treat Jesus. But Jesus said, those poor disciples, hey, look at those little kids. And he prepared the fire, and he prepared the bread and the fish, and they came to him. And he's the Lord, but they were just so fearful, they couldn't say, they were speechless. And look at how Jesus spoke to them. My beloved believers. And the disciples, the Isaiah 53 already prophesied that Jesus would get in custody, and he would get despised and suffer much, and he would be like the shepherd, and he wouldn't say anything. He would just be quiet. And the Old Testament talked about Jesus, but the disciples forgot about all of that. And all of the wicked people, they remembered those words. And like a sheep, an innocent sheep, he did not have any words. And when they saw Jesus, how can he just die so ruggedly and tragically? Look, I am the Son of God. And he didn't say anything. Hey, are you the Son of God? He just got beat and beat. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. On the cross, it was a conclusion. But the Lord's whole life was love and forgiveness. And 1 John chapter 4:7, it says, God is love. And that love, when we look at verse 19, it's the first love. He first loved us. Christmas is talking about God first loving mankind. God loved mankind first. And sometimes we help people and we like people because they help us. But Jesus didn't even get treated. Now, in Jesus' whole life and ministry, we could see, hey, if they're wicked or good, whether sinners or righteous, the sun shines upon both of them. And that's talking about God's character. And we are, they come from our same hometown. Oh, they come from the same university. Same company. Our hearts go to those people. But if there's somebody who's not even part of our school, our hearts don't go to them. And that's wrong, that discrimination. Now, Jesus, and look at the Yeongdeungpo and Yongsan prostitutes, those hookers and whores. And look at the tax collectors, the sinners. And look at the lepers and all of the people who had illnesses, sinners. And God just loved all of those people, his family, and then the same. And the light of the sun shines both on the wicked and good. That's talking about Jesus's or God's character. The disciples of Jesus, they threw away Jesus and they ran away. He knew that he would get betrayed by them. And however, he said, in the last, you will have power and authority of the word, and you will believe in me. I know you're going to betray me, but in the end, he knew that they were going to believe. And Jesus found them and made them to believe. My beloved believers, they were in horror, or they were in disarray, and like darkness was in them, emptiness. And Jesus could understand that. Hey, you bastards! Hey, you mooched off me for 3 years. You saw all of the miracles, and you saw people getting healed. Hey, you betrayed me? What? You bastards, you rascals. Hey, if people would say that as people, as man. Jesus didn't have that, but he saw pity on them. He's love. And Thomas, and from the women he saw, he heard those things from the disciples and women. He didn't believe, though. He didn't believe. And when we look at Luke 22, we can see that Thomas was not a part of their gathering. So there were 10 of them. And after 8 days, and then he was late. He had absent for 8 days. After that, he believed in Jesus. Now he resurrected. The first gift is peace that he gave through the resurrection. Peace. When Jesus was born. When we look at Luke chapter 2:14, it was about peace. Peace. In your families, in your personal lives, in all of your business. If you cannot be peaceful, nothing works out. Nothing works out. In our thoughts, we're just suffering so much. Oh, it would be nice to make a lot of money and to eat a lot. And it would be nice to live a great life like that. But people say that out of ignorance, whether you have money or not. But peace. If you lose your peace, it's no use. You could live, but it's like hell. That is like the tomb while you're living. In your heart, if you cannot be peaceful, then you are like a corpse. It's to be pitied. It's to be pitied. And in the night of the resurrection, the disciples were fearing and in trembling. And John 20:19, peace be with you. I said this before. He showed them the scars on his side, on his hands. And now, let's look at Luke 24. Let's visit here. Luke 24, from 36. Ready? Go. And while they were telling these things, he himself stood in their midst. But they were startled and frightened and thought they were seeing a spirit. And he said to them, why are you troubled? Now look at this. They saw him. They thought he was a spirit, like one that had no body and flesh. There's no error in that. Verse 37. And then 39. See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Touch me and see. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have. Look at that. Spirits, they don't have flesh and bones. No, you see me. I have bone and flesh. Touch me. touch me. Now when we die, and we sleep in the tomb, when we resurrect, we will be like Jesus. Now, we will not be limited in time, space, and distance. It is the spiritual flesh, spiritual body. Now, was Jesus some kind of person who didn't have that body? But those who believe, and believe that you'll be blessed if you have faith. There will be blessings to those who believe. If you don't believe, it's very dangerous. And how is it that Thomas said, hey, unless I see the place where he got the crown of thorns, and see both hands, both feet, those holes from the nails, and if I don't see the scar on the side, hey, before I put my finger in there, I'm not going to believe. Hey, wake up, you guys. And that kind of kid, Jesus appeared to him, and Thomas, he said, hey, touch me. And don't be an unbeliever, but be a believer. They saw him, they couldn't touch him, but they went prostrate, and they could barely look up to him. Lord, and now I believe. I believe. My beloved believers, they're just trembling in fear. They're going to die if they get caught. And so, to his disciples, it was like medicine. And they just had this, like a scary disease. After the cross of Jesus, there was a scary horror amongst them. What is going to happen to us if we're going to get caught? Are we going to die? They had this illness upon them. And what is the medicine? It is peace. And so Jesus said to his disciples, peace be with you. Before he hung on the cross, John 14:27, the peace I give you is not a peace that a world can give you. I give you peace. And be bold. Be strong. I have overcome the world. And they forgot that word that Jesus spoke. And he had to give them peace, he said. If they believed in that peace, he wouldn't have had to give that message. He would have said something else. And if you have a friend, hey, they have to believe you so that you could tell them your inner thoughts. If they don't believe you, why would you tell them anything? Jesus is the same way. John 14:27, if they believe that word, Jesus, do you think he would say, peace be with you? Would he say those things? The disciples forgot peace, and they just had a great illness, worries, concerns, and they had anxiousness. And so look at Koreans. And when they greet each other, hey, peace be with you. Hey, are you at peace? The Jews, what do they say? They say shalom, shalom. That means peace. In your personal family lives, in all of the affairs of your life, when you meet your friends, shalom, shalom, shalom. And so this is the word of peace. And I'm praying so that you could have peace. Shalom. The resurrected Lord here, he gave them the blessing of peace, but he didn't stop there. But he gave them both spiritually, physical blessings. I'm not going to leave you. Matthew 28. What was his word there? What did he say? I will be with you until the ends of the world. He is Emmanuel. God is with us. Emmanuel. And wherever God is, there is no darkness there. Even if it tries, it cannot. Why? Because God himself is light. There's no darkness. And when you have business, you have to have a business with God together. Then you will never come to ruin. I said this before. When Jesus was born, Luke chapter 2:14, all of the angels, look at the sounds of the choir. And not just one or two, but all of the legions of angels. And there was just an earthquake in the heavens. And when God sent Jesus, and look at the blessings of that peace. And in the earth, there's peace and good news on earth. There will be joy and peace on earth. Peace I give to you, and the peace that I give you is not the world. Is not a peace that world can give you. Do not be distressed or grieved. How great is that? If they receive Jesus' word as it is, then in your lives, it would have been full. There would be reconciliation. It would be full in your businesses. But people, foolish mankind, they focus on power, money. If God is with you, and no matter how ruined your business is, but God will just blow that away, and the darkness will go away. This is in the Bible. Our Pyeonggang Church people, we have the peace in your families, that peace in our nation. That is peace upon us. This is peace. Isn't that right? Now this church, there's elders and pastors over every district, and those who break the peace is Satan. That is destruction. That is the descendants of wickedness. There's no peace for the wicked. They can never be at peace. The wicked do not have peace. And look at Satan. What kind of king is he? He is the king of... Jesus is the king of peace, but Satan is the king of disorder and chaos, insecurity. And your families need to be at peace and reconciled. And your church life, you have to serve with sincerity, believe in Jesus with sincerity, and try to live by the word. And could there be chaos there and disarray, but peace in each church? There's pastors and elders, eldresses, and they come and they try to kick out other people. And that is the Satan's play. But our Pyeonggang Church, do we have that? In Pyeonggang Church, do we have jealousy and envy? If there is, peace cannot stick to you. And amongst the believers, do they try to say things about pastors and so forth? Hey, they're trying to live full of the words, full of grace. And how is your mouth so loose? Why don't you go to a church that you like that? But when you're a Pyeonggang Church, you cannot say anything. And look at everybody. Look at other churches, causing fights between pastors and members. It's making everything turn their backs on each other. Satan does that. And if something just doesn't go right with you, you just give them the cut eye, and you just try to spy people out. But Pyongyang Church does not have that. Everyone's trying to live, and they're trying to fix their own quick temper and entrusting things to God, and in God's grace, trying to receive God's word and peace, and try to work for the will of God and pray and praise, read the Bible, and try to be faithful in the work that's been given to us, and being faithful in the small things. And this is the church of Pyongyang Church. Now me, in the church members, hey, in my character, I would, hey, do I put my name in anything? But first of all, the church is God's. And secondly, it's the believers. I never put my name on anything. It's not pastors or elders, but it's all of the saints. If there's 10,000 members, then that is all of yours, of the 10,000 people. Oh, you buy land and you put your name on there, and then you don't give that land. And hey, that's my land. Hey, you're going to go back to God and say, hey, you robber. Hey, you had that land that was the church's. What's going to happen to you? You cannot even live 100 years. You cannot even live a few decades. Isn't that right? You can't live many years. No. We are the Pyongyang Church from the General Assemblies. We cannot put our own names in any property or anything. Bank is same thing. But if there's an elder or deacon, hey, why is the church asking for their land back? And so we put 2 or 3 people as co-signers. And so even if one dies, there's 2 left, right? And so we co-sign. Yeoju is the same. Because of the law, we had to do it like that. So we couldn't put it through the church's name. But we put it through several people's names. And Elder O, he didn't put his own name, but with 2 people, other names. And then we bought it. And the price of the land is going to go up. And if there's problems, then they're going to share that problem. And so I calculate these things. The church cannot lose out in anything. And all of the churches is the members. When I see my son, and he came out of good university and studied well, and I said, don't be a pastor, be an elder and take on the hearts of the people, even if the pastor does wrong. And don't ever sit on the forefront of kicking pastors out. And pray for the pastor, make him at peace, okay? And so I taught my 3 sons like that. Work for the revival of the church. And so he bought the pastor a house and a car. And he would give allowance money like $3,000, $5,000. Hey, you have to be like that. I taught them like that. Then you will be blessed. The church's property is yours. God's church is yours. The church members. And my house is here. Right here. In the church. And it's nothing really special. It's in the church, right? And there are situations where people just were trying to be so greedy, my beloved believers. And if people become enemies to each other, then there's no peace for each other. When they meet each other, they just turn around, and already you become Satan. I'm not a son and daughter of God. That is the witness of that. And he said, love your neighbor, enemies. God's commandment said that. There's no discrimination. He said, love. They cursed me, but you have to bless them. You have to be reconciled. Please be reconciled.